I want to talk about the evolution of the East African armies since interception up to now. Of course, each country has its own army and each has its own air force, and each has, apart from Uganda, each one has its navy. Uganda does not have a navy because it is a landlocked country, but Kenya and Tanzania have got a navies. Uh, in the year around 1902 or 01 or even 1900, Britain had had a navy which used to patrol the oceans. But the Royal Navy could not be tied to East Africa because, for example, if it is patrolling Kenya to East Africa to India, Kenya Tanganyika to India, it could not be tied up to, let's say, East Africa. Air Force those days was a very young idea because if you know when the plane started being manufactured, it was still in its infancy. So those days there were only two arms of the military. That is the Navy, and then the land army. The land military was called the Army, of course, and in East Africa it was under one command. It was under one command, and the East African Army for the following countries: Kenya, Tanganyika. Tanganyika is now called Tanzania. Kenya, Tanganyika, and Uganda had one army called King's African Rifles. King's African Rifles. At independence, Kenyan army adapted two names. It adapted two names. I know very few people know that Kenya army has two names. On one hand, it started calling itself Kenya Rifles, and on the other side, it started calling itself Kenya Army. You will see that its flag, some of its flag, like Langata has several names. Langata, they either call themselves Maroon Commandos or they call themselves 7th Kenya Rifles. But the whole army was called Kenya Army. I think with the development of weaponry, where they brought in artilleries and so on, I think they had to do away with the usage of rifles, because rifles meant, and it usually mostly it had to do with infantry. It had to do with infantry. Still in Kenya, we had the main camp. There were several camps. The main camp was in Kahawa, where today we have Kahawa Garrison. But when when the King's African Rifle was divided into each country, then Kahawa Garrison was found to be very big because it is a place where it had military men from all over East Africa. But it was found that it was too big for Kenya Army alone. So Jomo Kenyatta converted it into half of it. Half of it left it to the army, and the other half he made it what he called Kenyatta College. Kenyatta College. This was specifically it's like a high school, but it never admitted Form 1 to Form 4. It just admitted Form 5 and Form 6. When they started this thing about A levels, it was never in schools. It used to be in colleges. So it was called Kenyatta College. Kenyatta College was later upgraded and it was upgraded, but still it was called Kenyatta College, which became a TTC for secondary teachers. For secondary teachers, this is you find that we have P1, and we used to have P2, P3, P4. These are teachers for primary. And then we used to have S1, S2, S3, teachers to treat in secondary. So Kenya Science, Kenyatta College, and whatever they started teaching, there were diploma colleges which taught for secondary teacher. You graduated and were called S1. But if you graduated for a TTC, the other type of TTC, you ended up as P1. Kenyatta College later became Kenyatta University College, KUC. Now, Kenyatta College Stage 1 was an A level from 5 from 6. Kenyatta College State Grade 2 was a secondary school TTC, and that is Grade 2. But Grade 3, it changed to KUC, Kenyatta University College, which was the Faculty of Education of University of Nairobi. But later on, it became a fully fledged university. Now, Tanzania Army was formed, and it became, I said Kenya Army adopted two names, Kenya Rifles and Kenya Army, and it has always been there, that until today. Although rarely do you find them using the word Kenya Rifles, they just call themselves Kenya Army. Tanzania Army started calling itself Tanzania Army. It changed its name from Tanzania Army, and it calls itself Tanzania People's Defense Forces. But they like the Swahili word for it, which they call it Jeshi la Wananchi wa Tanzania, JWT. Just change that from Tanzania Army to Jeshi la Wananchi wa Tanzania. It is in Uganda that they have had very many changes. Remember, after independence in early 60s, Uganda Army became UA. You'll find that Kenya Army vehicles are written KA. Find like the Army Commander's vehicle is written 00KA00. Then they continue that way. You find that before you reach the KA, there is each group has, they have very different places. Like, for example, they would say Langata would be 07, then KA, then 99, something like that. It is a bit complicated, especially for me, who has never been in the army. So in Tanzania, it used to be such numbers 00TA, then 99. And Uganda, it will be used to be 00UA 99. And as I said, Tanzania Army just changed from TA to JWT, Jeshi la Wananchi wa Tanzania. Uganda Army has changed quite a lot. It started off as UA, Uganda Army. Then they continued that way, with the first president being Kabaka Mutesa, the first president and commander-in-chief of the Uganda Army. Later on, he was overthrown by Obote with the assistance of Idi Amin, there where it continued being called Uganda Army. Obote was overthrown by Amin. It still retained the name Uganda Army. Then it reached a time when people from Ugandan exiled in Tanzania went and overran Uganda. Actually, what happened was Amin, in an unwise way, went and occupied a district in Tanzania, which the district was bounding Uganda. It is still called Kagera region. He went and occupied it and declared Kagera to be a district in Uganda. He even went there and posted with tankers inside Kagera. That is when now there were two groups that were fighting him. There was the Tanzanian army or armed forces, and then there was the Ugandans who were exiled in Tanzania. You'll not believe it, but among those fighters who were fighting to dispose of Amin, one of the commanders was Joel. Now, if you want to ask me who is Joel, I'll say he's called Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Yoweri, but Yoweri is Joel. So when these people came and overran Uganda, they started a new army. Which they called UNLA, Uganda National Liberation Army. So the Ugandan army was renamed to UNLA, Uganda National Liberation Army. Due to various political activities, whatever, Museveni was not happy with the activities of what was going on, and then he went to the forest at a place called Loero Triangle. That is where he started his guerrilla tactics. He started off with his ragtag group of militias, which he called National Resistance Army. National Resistance Army in January 1986 came and overran Uganda. So they renamed the army for a third time. I said the first time the army was called UA, Uganda Army. The second time it was called Uganda National Liberation Army. Now he renamed mm, it National Resistance Army. It was not just National Resistance Army that overthrew the UNLA of the Okellos. There was Tito Okello Lutwa, and there was Barcelio, Brigadier General Barcelio Okello. It is not NRA alone which overthrew. There were several. In fact, I remember one of the armed groups which joined NRA. I can't recall the full name, but it was headed by the then Brigadier Moses Ali. Brigadier Moses Ali is now a retired full general and a minister in Yoweri. So NRA was the main group. It was joined by other armed groups, but then they renamed the army from Uganda National Liberation Army to NRA. Now, not all elements, not actually there is even a general who retired recently last month. He was part of the UNLA. You know, when NRA and other armed forces, not even that, even the time when UNLA was replacing Uganda Army, they had even to take some elements of the former army. So when NRA and other groups were taking over, they vetted some people and integrated them into the NRA. NRA stayed for some time, so the Ugandan army was just known as NRA. But it reached a time when, if I'll remember, I'll comment on the comment section. It reached a time when NRA was renamed because they were saying that they are no longer resisting, but they are People's Defense Forces. That is when they changed their name to UPDF. UPDF, Uganda People's Defense Forces. UPDF has three arms. I know you know the Air Force, I know you know the Land Army, but then you ask which is the other third, and Uganda is landlocked. They have FSC, Special Forces. Uh, they have Special Forces group to form the Ugandan Army. That, viewers, is how the King's African Rifle, which was the East African Army, changed up to today, up to the time of recording this video. Thank you for whatever you have been placing, especially this being Christmas. I've seen that in the till number, the outcome from the till number is reminding me that this is a Christmas time because of the amount and the number of people sending something. Thank you and thank you again.